Welcome back. We have pattern matching. And this is where the resource we have that our brain makes sense of our world by comparing new experiences to those we've had in the past. So let's think about the smell of coffee. So I'm experiencing the smell of coffee in the external world, and what will happen is my brain will start to look for what does that remind me of in my internal world, and what I will connect with is it's the smell of coffee. If you think of it in a way, it's a bit like a scanner in a supermarket. When you go along to the scanner it reads the code on the product that you want to buy. It sends all that message back into a database of all the items that are in the supermarket, and it says to the scanner says to the database, what's this like? What's this closest to? The scanner will read it and it will come back and go through all the data and it'll come back and say, it's a banana. And that's really what pattern matching is. It's seeing what is happening in our present everyday reality and how does that match or relate to something that we know in the past. Sometimes our pattern matches that we have are particularly positive or beneficial to us, and sometimes maybe they're not. And we need to just become aware that every day as we're going through our everyday lives, we're pattern matching all the time. So just become aware of your pattern matches. Our next resource is the dreaming brain. And I know most people are fascinated with dreams, but we've recently discovered that what neuroscience has shown is that one of the theories we have about why we dream is that it helps us to diffuse any emotions that have been aroused during the day and haven't necessarily been expressed. So when we're sleeping and we go through a dream state, that kind of housekeeping, if you like, is done, so that when we wake up in the morning, we wake up refreshed, alert, and ready to face into the day. However, if we've been worrying or ruminating too much, sometimes we need an awful lot of sleep, or we need an awful lot of dream sleep. And then when we wake up in the morning, we may not feel as refreshed as we wish, because we haven't got the other type of sleep, which is the refreshing, quality, deep, nourishing type of sleep. So our final resource is our observing self. And our observing self, if you like, is thinking about our thinking. Were you ever maybe perhaps heard the news or read something in the paper and got really angry, or had a very strong reaction to it, and you might say to yourself, oh, I didn't know I really felt so strongly about that. What's all that about? Where did that come from? Or maybe ask yourself, why do I always react so badly when Avril walks into the room? What is it about? What's that about? So it's that capacity that we have, and we have it as we get older, as in our teenage years and on, in terms of being able to critically reflect on our thinking and our beliefs, and to ask ourselves the question, where is that coming from? And is that still actually true for me? And what's that about? So sometimes we can think of it as looking at that kind of conditioning that we've had from our culture and from our society, from growing up. And as we become more adult, we can perhaps ask ourselves, is that correct? Is that really how I think, or what I believe? And maybe make changes as a result of that. Or it can also be valuable information as to the informed decisions you might need to make in the future. So hopefully, when this pandemic ends, we won't have to experience such an extreme version of that pushes us off the rat race, if you like, or off the never-ending treadmill. But what is really important is that we take control of that. So we make sure that we take time out for ourselves. That might be through meditation, it might be through walking, or getting out in nature, but really important that we give ourselves the privacy and the time out to reflect on what's going on in our lives and reflect on our own thinking and our behaviour, so that we're able to make good decisions. So I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to share these videos with you, and I really hope that learning about the needs and our emotional needs and the resources we have to meet those needs has been helpful. And I hope to hear maybe in the future sometime that how you've applied that information, and that it has helped you in some particular way as you go about your daily lives. And perhaps you take an opportunity to listen to the later video, where our community members who attended some of these webinars have taken that learning and applied it to their lives in a way that has benefited them and helped and supported to improve their well-being. Thank you again. So I'd like to tell you a story about a young girl in Sudan. This young girl was born in a very arid and remote part of Sudan, and she lived with her mother. And her mother was pregnant with her youngest sister. Now this young girl had no access to education, she couldn't read or write, or access to information. And there was also, in that particular part of Sudan, very poor access to medical care. I think there was one doctor for every 5,000 people, and even if you were fortunate to have a doctor in the region, it might take you a day or two to get to that doctor. So this young girl of 13 was with her mother when her mother went into labour and delivered a baby girl, this girl's sister. But unfortunately, due to complications, that young girl had to witness both her mother and her baby sister die in such terrible, tragic circumstances. And she couldn't call for help because she was completely on her own. And in that moment of her utter despair, and in the moment of that tragedy, she made a decision that she would help other women. That if they were during pregnancy, they would have the support and help they need, that such a tragedy would be avoided in the future. Now when you think of it, that's a young girl of 13 who can't read or write, has little or no resources that we're aware of, and she's making that decision. Roll it forward to 2 years later, when she's 15, and she hears about this English couple that have come over from Oxford on a work placement for 2 years. So this young girl, who's now 15, presented herself at their door and said to them, "I'd like to be your house girl. I will cook, clean, look after your children, do your shopping, your laundry, whatever it is that you require." So they decided that they would take her in, and they did. And every day she did her household duties, but one of the things that she did was she sat down with the children. They had 2 young girls, and every day they had to do their homework. And this young girl would sit down with them and do their homework with them and get them to explain to her what it was that they were learning. One, to help them learn, but also that she could learn from them. So at the end of this 2 years, she had pretty much a rudimentary British junior school education. And the couple had to return to England, back to Oxford. But they were so taken by this young girl that they said to her, "Why don't you come with us? Why don't you come back to England and continue your education?" So can you imagine the courage it took for that young woman? She left everything she was familiar with, her culture, her food, relationships, everything, in pursuit of her goal. And she went back to England with this couple. And to make a long story short, they put her through college. She went to secondary school, she went through college, and she qualified as an obstetrician and a gynecologist. And at this point in her life, she could very comfortably have any job that she wished in that sector in Europe and had a very comfortable life. But she never forgot. She was true to her original goal. So what that woman does now is she went back to Sudan and entirely operated on a shoestring budget of donations. She sets up and trains clinics to train women in prenatal care. So I hope when you reflect on this story, you can see how that young woman used all her resources so wisely and well. And it's interesting to think, how are you going to use your resources wisely and well? And how are you going to use your resources to make a difference for your own life, or the community, or maybe even the world? So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing how well you're getting on in the future. Thank you.